If you've been struggling to get a real authentic blues sound and blues approach, I might have the missing ingredient for you today. And a lot of this comes down to a big issue with the way a lot of people are taught to play the blues. And that is we're taught sort of this one-sided approach. So to approach things purely from a minor blues perspective. So I'll show you what I mean. Most of us learn, the minor pentatonic, and then we learn the minor blues scale, right? Whereas, in fact, all the greats, B.B. King, Stevie Ray Vaughan, John Mayer, guys like that, they are using the minor blues scale, but they're also using major, some people call it a major blues scale, but major tonality in there as well, which is a crucial ingredient to get that proper, authentic blues sound. And I think a part of the reason why this has happened, why a lot of people are taught in this way, is because a lot of us sort of learnt the guitar based on music from, bands from the 70s, like Led Zeppelin or, countless other bands from that era. And a lot of that music had more of a minor tonality. So if you think, Stairway to Heaven, that's minor, right? Smoke on the Water, that's minor as well. And I could go on and on. Whereas, if you start thinking about music more from the 60s and 50s, it has more of a major, almost dominant seventh blues tonality, okay? So I think what's happened is we've sort of, our bias towards music from the 70s onwards, I'm not saying everything from the 70s onwards is minor, I'm not saying that, but there was definitely a shift. Our bias towards that has led us to teaching blues or understanding blues from that perspective, from this minor blues perspective. And as I said, that's only really half of the story. So I'll get into explaining what I mean here. The first way people sort of start thinking about this is to add in the major pentatonic scale. So mixing that in with the minor blues scale. So you would have if you're in the key of A, so that's in the same position. So that is the A major pentatonic, right? But a lot of people play it. It's quite, falls under the fingers nicely in this position. Okay, so you can be mixing sort of ideas from that scale in with your minor blues scale as well. So you might have, so that was major pentatonic and then back to a minor blues. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but what tends to happen when you're sort of separating those two scales in your mind is you'll play phrases purely in one scale, and then maybe move to another scale for the other phrase. But what you really want to be able to do if you're playing blues phrases is, in the one phrase, you're sort of weaving those two sounds together. So an example of that might be, okay. So what I'm doing there, I'm going up a major pentatonic with a little slide into the major third there. So that's all major pentatonic, and then when I'm going down, that's a minor blues, okay? Now, because it's all together in one phrase, it's sort of, in real time, that's happening a little bit, sort of going by a little bit too quickly to think about them as separate scales. So I'm not really thinking major, minor. That's just not really practical. So Another way to think about it is kind of fusing those together and thinking about it as sort of this like master blues scale. So if you do that, you would have... Okay, so it's a bit of a handful, and there's 9 notes in there. So I'm calling it a scale in inverted commas because it almost doesn't behave like a normal scale would, and I'll tell you why. So in a normal sort of diatonic scale, there's a lot more freedom to move from any note in the scale to any other note. And it's still going to sound, in most cases, will still sound pretty fine. So if we're talking about, say, for instance, Aeolian, I'm just going to play A Aeolian and... I can, move around that scale quite freely, and it's all still going to sound quite coherent. But so when I play this master blues scale that I was just talking about, again, scale in inverted commas, without any real sort of like deliberate intent about which note is coming after which other note, it can sound like a bit of a hot mess, okay? So I'll give you an example. So we're playing it over A7, right? So a dominant chord. I'll just sort of pick out random notes in any kind of order. So as you can hear, it sounds pretty woeful, and it definitely doesn't sound like blues. So, where's the disconnect here? We've got all the notes that are sort of making up the sound of blues, but it's not sounding like blues. And this is where it comes into, where a lot of people sort of get a bit lost with their approach to trying to play the blues properly. It's not only about what notes are available, but how you use them, the vocabulary, the language. So I'm going to give you a little example of how you might start using a bit of language and vocabulary to add some of this major tonality into your playing. So let's do this. Let's start from this note here of a minor blues scale, so here, and we're going to descend until we get to this note, so the octave below. Now, once you get here, I want you to sort of double back up and hammer on to that major third we were talking about. And then after that, sort of continue on through that blues scale, so down to the next note of the blues scale. So, okay. And then you can do that in the next octave. So just that little approach there, try and get your head around this movement from the minor third to the major third. So that's going to start bringing out more of that proper blues sort of, blues tonality, mixing the minor and the major. Okay, great. Now, that can be applied in different positions all over the neck. So, for example, if you're playing more in an open position, and when at the start I said blues-based music, so that includes country and bluegrass and things like that. So that master blues scale, is used all the time. Say, in an open position. threw in an extra little bit of chromaticism there, but so you would have these notes here, right? I might have missed a note or two there, but okay, so you've got all that to explore now. So you're not just stuck purely. You know, if you're playing any of that blues-based music, you've really got to get out of this idea of purely playing minor or purely playing major. It's almost always a meeting of the two, so a melting pot of those two. All right, so if you've got anything out of today, make it that, you know, make it that understanding of that tonality, those two tonalities coming together. All right, guys. Hope that helped. And I've got a Patreon. If you want to sort of check out more content that's just exclusive to Patreon members, we go a bit deeper dive into things. And there's also tabs. Head on over, check it out. $5 a month. That would be awesome. But either way, all good. Keep watching. Hit subscribe. Hit like. Help me out. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, guys.